Welcome, my dear students of class 8A and 8B to my history and civics class. Today's points, as I mentioned in the board, please look at it. First point, expansion under Lord Hastings. Second one, outright wars, 1805 to 48. Third point, conquest of Mysore. Fourth point, conquest consequences. And fifth point, conquest of the Maratha kingdom. Now, first point, expansion under Lord Hastings. Who was Lord Hastings? Lord Hastings was the new Governor General after Wellesley. Wellesley's subsidiary alliance was not accepted by almost all Indian states. They brought their discontency. They established an opinion that Wellesley, by hook or by crook, extended their territories in India. They had occupied the states of the regional kingdoms by hook or by crook, by applying the subsidiary alliance. The policy of subsidiary alliance was not fairly made. It was not neat and clean. It was not fair, and almost all Indian states, they all were, misguided by Lord Wellesley and forced them to come to the alliance subsidiary. Meanwhile, Lord Hastings came to India as a new Governor General in the year 1813. Now Hastings, on reaching India, decided to make a new policy. He gave up the policy of subsidiary alliance and adopted a new policy. The name of this policy was the policy of paramountcy. Now, what is the policy of paramountcy? Outright wars. That means the Britishers were superior to the Indian rulers. The Britishers were superior to the Indian rulers, and they would establish their rule by declaring wars against them, by defeating them successfully, so that they must not raise any complaint that the British had occupied their territories by hook or by crook, or the British had occupied their territories dishonestly by making them fool like subsidiary alliance. That means, first of all, the British would establish their political control over the states by declaring war and by defeating them. After defeating, they would apply the laws of the subsidiary alliance. But before, they would declare war against them. It was the system of outright wars, or the policy of paramountcy, which was followed by Lord Hastings. And later, Lord Hastings and his followers followed the policy of paramountcy, declared war against a number of Indian states, and one by one they were defeated by the British. Then the British established their control over there. For example, the Marathas, the Marathas were defeated. Punjab also came under their control. Mysore came under their control. So these were the states came under the British control under the system of paramountcy, policy of paramountcy. Now next one, conquest of Mysore. Mysore emerged as a strong political power under the leadership of Hyder Ali and his son Tipu Sultan. Both of them, chased the British strongly from the very beginning. Hyder Ali got success, and then his son Tipu Sultan also. Tipu Sultan also was able to defeat the British during the first Anglo-Mysore, during first Anglo-Mysore War. Hyder Ali defeated them. During second Anglo-Mysore War, Hyder Ali died in the year 1782. During third Anglo-Mysore War, the Hyder Ali, defeated the British, and during fourth Anglo-Mysore War, during third Anglo-Mysore War, Tipu Sultan defeated the British, and during fourth Anglo-Mysore War, that means the last Anglo-Mysore War, Tipu Sultan was killed while protecting his capital, Seringapatam. And by doing it, the British occupied the entire territories of Mysore. So Mysore came under British control. Like that way, the British also established their control over the Marathas. They established their political control over Punjab. By this way, these states came under British control. By declaring war, the British followed the policy of outright war, so that no one could raise hue and cry, no one could raise any objection that their states were annexed forcefully. And by declaring wars against them and by defeating them, they occupied their territories. The states came under British control, and British proudly said to them that your states came under British control because all of you were defeated by the Britishers. Then now some consequences were there of Mysore. What were the consequences? As I mentioned earlier, Hyder Ali died in the year 1782 when the second Anglo-Mysore was fighting against Mysore and the British. Then Tipu Sultan came to power. Tipu Sultan emerged as a Victoria power at first. When the second Anglo-Mysore was going on, and after the death of his father Hyder Ali, Tipu Sultan was able to defeat them. Third Anglo-Mysore War, the British took possession over Mysore, in some parts of Mysore. And fourth Anglo-Mysore War, Tipu Sultan, while protecting his capital, Seringapatam, died. And by this way, Mysore came under British control. And at the end of the Anglo-Mysore War, fourth Anglo-Mysore War, the British handed over the power to the former, rulers of Mysore. They were Odia dynasty. The British handed over the power to the Odia dynasty, but it was brought under the subsidiary alliance, the term of the subsidiary alliance. And next, conquest of the Maratha kingdom. Conquest of the Maratha kingdom. How? The third battle of Panipat was held in the year 1761 between the two powers, the Afghans and the Marathas. The Marathas were badly defeated by Afghan leader Ahmad Shah Abdali in the third battle of Panipat. It encouraged the British to occupy the territories of the Marathas. So, the British, the Maratha, who had been expecting that they would be able to establish their rule at center, means at Delhi, and would become the ruler of India. All their dreams were broken. They were unable to establish their rule after being defeated by Ahmad Shah Abdali in the third battle of Panipat. They lost the territories. So the defeat broke up the Maratha Empire, Maratha power into groups, and each headed by one chief, Peshwa, prime minister. But despite disunity and internal conflicts among the chiefs, most of the central and western India was under the Maratha control. The company had to defeat the Marathas in order to establish their empire in India. When a war of succession broke out among the chiefs after the death of the fourth, Peshwa, Madhavrao I, the company officials took advantage of the internal crisis and problems and began to interfere in the conflicts in the affairs of the Marathas. They began to exploit the situation to gain monetary advantages and to expand their territories. The company fought their three wars with the Marathas. Number one, first Anglo-Maratha War, second Anglo-Maratha War, and third Anglo-Maratha War. Now, what were the consequences of the three Anglo-Maratha Wars? Number one, the first Anglo-Maratha War continued for 7 years. It continued for how many years? It continued for 7 years and came to an end with the Treaty of Salwa in the year 1782. And the war ended without decisive victory for either side, but the East India Company established themselves as a strong power of India. The Second Anglo-Maratha War broke the backbone of the Maratha nation, the backbone of the Maratha kingdom, after, being defeated by the British. The rulers of Bhosle and Sindhia families in Maharashtra, as well as Peshwa Bajirao II, were compelled to enter into subsidiary alliance with the company. They were forced to give some of their land and host British troops and residents in their court. Now they were unable to lodge any complaint against the British East India Company to their headquarters, England. Why? Because the British adopted the policy of outright wars. The policy of paramountcy means they declared war against them, they defeated them, and then they applied the terms of the subsidiary alliance. And these terms of the subsidiary alliance, now they were forced to accept since they were defeated by the British. Next, the Third Anglo-Mysore War. The Third Anglo-Mysore War sealed the fate of the Marathas. They occupied the two territories of Maratha leader Ahmad Shah Abdali. As a result, Ahmad Shah Abdali accepted their challenge and declared war against them. But the Marathas were overconfident that they would be able to defeat Ahmad Shah Abdali. But they did not have any idea what sort of a leader Ahmad Shah Abdali was. Simply they took risk. And finally were defeated badly by Afghan leader Ahmad Shah Abdali. The British took its advantages. And ultimately, the British established their control over Maratha states. The British became the chief political entity in India ultimately by defeating the Marathas, because they declared three Anglo-Maratha wars. And in three Anglo-Maratha wars, the Marathas could not establish their, glory and image against the British. But they were badly defeated by the British. The British applied the policy of Paramount, outright wars. The Marathas had no unity. Naturally, they were bound. Naturally, they had no options but were defeated by the British. So up to this, my dear students, next day I shall discuss from Conquest of Punjab onwards. If you have any problem, any difficulty, ask me. I shall help you during live classes. Thank you.